In the NFL, poverty-based franchises are considered especially comical. Here at the TTT, the elite team that investigates them are known as the Poverty Franchises Unit. These are their stories.
Hail to the Reds. Wait. Hail to the football team. Wait, hold on. Hail to the Commanders. Hail to victory. Braving on the warpath. Fight for old DC.
This team has hurt me.
And they do it the same way every single year. They go out, they seemingly have a great draft.
The Washington Redskins select Robert Griffin III, quarterback, Baylor.
They chase names, they get underdeveloped or overhyped talent.
The Washington Redskins have suspended defensive lineman Albert Haynesworth without pay for the last 4 games of the regular season. The team says Haynesworth is being punished for conduct detrimental to the club.
And all offseason they spend spreading the same gas. And at the end, it's always the same heartbreak. This one's personal. That's right. I'm Riley Puddin Peters, and the Trash Talk Tailgate is bringing the Poverty Franchise Unit straight to Washington, D.C. as we go to the site of, well, the team that has broken my heart more than anything has ever broken my heart ever. In fact, one of my saddest memories ever is watching us getting dusted by the Philadelphia Eagles on a Monday night, first Monday night of the season Monday night game, where we lost 59-28. Oh, I mean, you want to talk about pain? That's true pain. Being a Commanders fan, I don't like that. Now, Commanders have had a storied history. That's what's so crazy. Legends of the game have came through the hallowed halls of Washington, D.C.'s football organization. See, here's the thing. I haven't even been able to say a name. Is it the Redskins? Is it the football team? It's got to be the Commanders. Ugh, that's something for later. But right now, look back when they were for sure just the Redskins, after they were the Boston Braves. The Redskins, they've won some championships. Obviously, NFL championships in 1937 and 1942, way back in the day. But more recently, under Joe Gibbs, they won 3 Super Bowls in 1982, 1987, and 1991. Joe Gibbs is a legend in coaching. I mean, one of the all-time greats. During this era of the 80s and into the 90s, there were some great players. Obviously, you have legendary quarterback Joe Theismann that played through from 1974 to 1985. Still holds the record for most passing yards, 25,206. That is the franchise record for Washington. Finished his career with 160 passing touchdowns. Absolute legend. He's the 1982 Super Bowl champion. He's the 1983 NFL MVP. He's a 2-time Pro Bowl selection. Then, in the late 80s, you get Doug Williams. He came in, played for a few seasons from 86 to 89, had 7,000 passing yards in that short tenure. He was the 1987 Super Bowl champion, along with being that Super Bowl's MVP, and he's the first black quarterback to start and win a Super Bowl. Going back to the 70s and 80s, John Riggins, the Diesel, can't forget him. He had 2,916 carries with 11,352 yards and 104 touchdowns in his career, on top of being a Super Bowl MVP. Wow. I mean, that's pretty impressive. Can't deny that. But nothing can top the legendary Hogs. Joe Jacoby, Russ Grimm, Jeff Bostic, Mark May, George Stark, one of the greatest units of mass and humanity that was ever assembled to be on the gridiron. A divine offensive line. Truly. It is legend that still today rings true in Washington, as even our newest mascot was made in the image of a hog to represent this history. But with all that history, it's been rough, because in 1999, a tragedy happened to the Washington organization. In that year, Dan Snyder purchased the Washington Redskins. And ever since then, well, let me tell you about Dan Snyder. Under the tutelage of Dan Snyder since 1999, the Washington organization has had a record of 158, 227, and 2. That is a .414 win rate, a 41% win percentage. He's not even cracking 500 as an owner. In 2006, he sold 9/11 memorabilia in the team stores, the only team in the NFL to do that. In 2009, after the 2008 recession, when people were having a hard time and they backed out of their season ticket holdings, he sued the collective season ticket holder group and won, getting $3.6 million on top of the $324 million he made that year already. And with all that money he's making terrible decisions. The man's not a GM. He shouldn't be an owner. He signed Albert Hainsworth to a $100 million contract, and all we got in that was 6.5 sacks in 2 years and a failed physical. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. In 2010, we traded a 3rd and 4th round draft pick for, no offense, washed up Donovan McNabb, and then that same year get shit on in the opening Monday night game to break my young heart. It feels like every step of the way they just want to hurt. And it's crazy because it's not just the fans. Daniel Snyder wants to hurt everyone. In 2020, a string of women associated with the Washington organization, whether in the front office or cheerleaders, started to come out alleging sexual harassment and workplace misconduct against Daniel Snyder. This culminated in reports of Washington cheerleaders being forced to take nude photos on beaches in Costa Rica while their passports were held hostage. All of this conveniently swept under the rug by the NFL, kept out of the limelight. Even Colts owner Jim Irsay, who, if Daniel Snyder didn't exist, would be the worst owner in the NFL, said that Daniel Snyder should be removed. This man is a curse. He's a curse. He's a curse on the left leg of every good quarterback that comes through this place. That's just the truth. And in 2007, Daniel Snyder caused one of the greatest tragedies ever to happen. Joe Gibbs to finally leave. Now, even when Joe Gibbs came back during the Snyder era, he may not have been the best, but after that, it was a sketchy route. And Dr. Preston, he's got some more on that.
Did you really think you'd get through an entire TTT video without seeing my face? Really? Well, I'm here to talk to you about the Washington Commanders and bring the hashtag copious notes. You know, the Commanders, the team that haven't been good since Sean Taylor was tragically murdered in 2007. And since Sean Taylor was murdered, the Commanders have gone 104, 158, and 2. And that means that they had 4 winning seasons and 12 losing seasons. The Commanders' fall from grace started when Dan Snyder bought the team in 1999. And it's honestly way worse than you even can imagine. Since Dan Snyder has bought the team in 1999, no head coach has finished with a winning record. No head coach has ever achieved a winning record under Dan Snyder. So we go to the first one, Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan was a 2-time back-to-back Super Bowl winning head coach with the Denver Broncos. He is, in 14 years with the Denver Broncos, he had an 138 and 86 record, or a .616 winning percentage. And the Commanders hired him. Thought, wow, he's great. He can resurrect this poverty-stricken franchise. And in 4 years as the Washington coach, Mike Shanahan went 24-40 for a .375 winning percentage. And then you go to Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera, in 9 years as the Panthers head coach, had a 76-63-1 record and also went to a Super Bowl in 2015. When Ron Rivera took over, in 4 years as the Commanders head coach, he had a record of 26-40. Even Joe Gibbs. Now, Joe Gibbs was dominant in the pre-Dan Snyder era. From 1981 to 1992, head coach Joe Gibbs had one losing season in 12 years, 3 Super Bowl victories, and an 124-60 record with the Washington football team, with the Washington Redskins. But Dan Snyder hired Joe Gibbs back in 2004, and not even Joe Gibbs, the legendary head coach Joe Gibbs, could overcome the poverty of Dan Snyder. Joe Gibbs, from 2004 to 2007, had a record of 30-32. There's a lot of fucked up stories going around about Dan Snyder. But the one that most people probably don't know about is one that I find really funny more than anything. So in 2004, Mike Nolan was the Washington defensive coordinator, and Dan Snyder thought that his defense was quote-unquote too vanilla. And what that means is, not a whole lot of exotic or, different schemes, a lot of base defense, a lot of base type stuff defensive. And Dan Snyder apparently did not like that. So for a few weeks, he would go put different flavors of ice cream on Mike Nolan's desk with notes saying, "I do not like vanilla. I do not like vanilla. Stop giving me vanilla." Isn't that insane? He would put different flavors of ice cream on the defensive coordinator's desk to try and prove a point when the dude has no idea what he's doing when it comes to football decisions and personnel decisions. So yeah, nice little Dan Snyder story for you. He does not like vanilla.
Well, that one seems like a rocky road. A rocky road to sinking your franchise into poverty. We look more like the island of destitute coaches. We take in all the old head coaches we can and just let them die on our beautiful island. Now, speaking of old head coaches, we got to talk about Mike Shanahan. And if you're talking about Mike Shanahan, you just have to stop and first acknowledge Robert Griffin III, a.k.a. RG3, a.k.a. RG Knee, one of the greatest tragedies that's ever happened in the Washington organization, right there behind Daniel Snyder buying the team. In 2012, Washington traded a 2012 first-round pick, a 2013 first-round pick, a 2012 second-round pick, and a 2014 first-round pick, all to get the option to move up to second overall and select Robert Griffin III, RG3, explosive Olympic sprinting speed quarterback from Baylor. And it seemed to bring a new air into the Washington organization, something that hadn't happened since 1999 at least. And in that year, Robert Griffin III's rookie year, he wins Offensive Rookie in the Year. He threw for 2,042 yards, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He had 814 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns. We got all the way to the playoffs before he suffered his tragic, essentially career-ending injury against Seattle, when Mike Shanahan continued to let him play, though he had already had a previously aggravated knee injury. An absolute bungling of pure talent. And that mismanagement of talent essentially put the Washington organization behind an 8-ball that it hasn't quite recovered from. If you want a fun fact, the Rams in 2014 brought out all 10 of the people that they got essentially after their wheels and deals and all that kind of good stuff. All the 10 players that they are attributed to from that trade. And they let them all be the captain for the coin toss as they played Washington one week. As a kind of a top tier troll. Mike Shanahan's fault, man. Mike Shanahan's fault. I mean, Shanahan may have been a legend once, but with Washington, he was nothing but a duck. In 2013, he had what might as well be the Avengers of coaching staffs. Sean McVay, Super Bowl winning coach of the Rams. Matt LaFleur, NFC Championship game coaching Packers coach. Kyle Shanahan, 49ers coach, 3 Super Bowl appearances, two of those Super Bowl appearances as a head coach. Mike McDaniel, current Dolphins head coach, 2 playoff appearances. And Raheem Morris, just hired Falcons head coach. All of these coaches were on that coaching staff in 2013. And they went 3-13. 3-13. An Avengers Assemble level squad. 3-13. His mismanagement truly just shot our team in the foot. And since then, we've had 10 plus starting quarterbacks. Read that. I'll say that again. Since 2013, we've had 10 plus starting quarterbacks. It's more than one a year. It's insane. We've never been able to recover quite the same. But if there's one good sign for the poverty franchise case in Washington, is that Dan Snyder was given the boot, and Adam Peters and his financial organization that features people like Magic Johnson, they purchased the Washington Commanders. I got to get on the name, I guess. The worst name. We should have stayed the football team. I can understand changing, whatever. Sure. The Commanders, Ron Rivera put the organization in an absolute headlock to make sure that we were the Commanders, just to stink it up and get fired. Good job, dude. Thanks for forcing us with the worst name. We could have had so many cooler names. The Red Tails, the Red Wolves, the Admirals. I know the Commanders, right? It was a military thing. They wanted it to be proud of our armed forces. We're DC. Ron Rivera has a big military thing. The Admirals were also on the table there at the end. That's the same thing. Way cooler name. The Commanders? It's terrible. We need to change it. Whatever we change to, we just need to change it. We can go back to the football team. I like this as the Washington football team. It had pizzazz. But now we have new management, and we'll see what happens. We did give up 65 sacks last year and then managed to hire the only offensive line coach who coached an offensive line to let more sacks than us since 2020, which is the Giants offensive line coach. We brought in Bobby Johnson, and, we've had some crazy trades, like notably trading Montez Sweat and Chase Young this season. But man, oh man, the Commanders, it's a poverty franchise. There's a lot to do to turn this ship around. And if we don't do it, who knows? But it's going to stink. It's going to stink like when the pipe burst in FedEx Stadium and covers the fans, or almost kills Jalen Hurts, though that one might have been intentional and a good plan. Just saying. But for this one, y'all, I'm going to wrap it up by saying I don't know, man. Quit breaking my heart. Please. Hurts so much. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.